Step out of the line and open that case now.
I'm declining your request. You won't be inspecting my case.
You don't consent because you've got something dirty in that case.
This case contains official department property.
Don't insult me. People like you don't carry department property.
Careful with that accusation.
No,
Maddox said.
From here, you look like a smuggler slipping past security.
Mariah Vale didn't flinch. Maddox lowered his voice.
Open it before I drag you to holding and tear it open myself.
Rusk twisted her wrist behind her back as passengers froze around them. What they didn't know was Mariah's silence wasn't fear. It was the mistake that would destroy them. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Captain Mariah Vale stepped off the jet bridge into Hartsfield Regional Terminal at 4:47 a.m. Her shoulders ached from the red-eye flight, delayed 3 hours in Dallas. She carried her black duffel in one hand and gripped the sealed evidence case in the other. The leather folder with her appointment papers pressed against her ribs inside her jacket. The terminal felt empty. A few travelers dozed on benches. A janitor pushed a mop bucket past closed shops. Mariah preferred it this way. No cameras, no speeches, no handshakes with politicians who smiled too much. Tomorrow morning, they would introduce her as the new commanding officer of the airport police division. Tonight, she just wanted to get her rental car and find her hotel. She moved through the quiet corridors toward baggage claim. Her sneakers made soft sounds on the polished floor. The evidence case weighed heavy in her right hand. 20 pounds of sealed documents and hard drives that people had tried to make disappear twice already. At baggage claim, the carousel sat still. Her flight's bags wouldn't arrive for another 10 minutes. Mariah found a spot near the wall and set down her duffel. She kept the evidence case close. That's when she noticed him. The officer stood 30 feet away, pretending to check his phone. White male, late 30s, thick arms crossed over his chest. His eyes kept flicking toward her case. His badge read, B. Rusk. Mariah had seen that look before. The look that said someone didn't belong. The look that turned questions into accusations. A second officer approached Rusk. This one moved different, smoother, more careful. His uniform looked pressed, even at this ungodly hour. He leaned close to Rusk and said something quiet. Both men started walking toward her. Mariah stayed still. She kept her breathing steady. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. Never give them a reason, but never bow down either. Morning, the first officer said. Rusk. Up close, she could see the coffee stain on his sleeve. That's an interesting case you got there. Good morning, officers, Mariah said. What's in it? Rusk asked. No small talk, no courtesy. Personal property and department material. Department? Rusk's eyebrows went up. Which department would that be? The second officer stepped closer. His badge read SGT C. Maddox. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold as airport tile. We need to know what you're transporting, Maddox said. His voice sounded reasonable, almost friendly. Security reasons. I understand, Mariah said. Is there a specific concern? Rusk's face got harder. The concern is that locked case you're holding like it's full of gold bars. Or maybe something else. Passengers at the next carousel started looking over. A woman grabbed her teenager's arm and pulled him away. An older man in a Marine's cap watched from his bench. Are you implying I'm carrying contraband? Mariah asked. I'm not implying nothing, Rusk said. I'm asking what's in the case. Simple question. Am I being detained? Rusk's jaw tightened. People always ask that question now. They saw it on YouTube. But coming from her, calm, direct, unafraid, it seemed to make him angrier. Maddox raised a hand slightly like calming a dog. We received an alert. Suspicious person matching your description. Traveling alone, unusual luggage, acting nervous. I'd like to see this alert, Mariah said. That's not how it works, Maddox said. We ask the questions. You answer them. I haven't seen any suspicious person alert, Mariah said. And I'm not acting nervous. Rusk stepped closer. His hand dropped to rest on his handcuffs. The metal caught the fluorescent light. Open the case, he said, or we open it for you. The baggage carousel kept turning, empty except for 3 forgotten suitcases. More people stopped to stare. A businessman with a garment bag slowed his walk. A mother pushing a stroller changed direction to go around them. I haven't consented to any search, Mariah said. Her voice stayed level. I need to speak with a supervisor. Maddox's smile got wider. I am the supervisor, Sergeant Cole Maddox, Airport Police. Now we can do this easy, or Officer Rusk here can make it hard. Real hard, Rusk added. His fingers drummed against his equipment belt. Sir, I'm asking you to... Rusk grabbed her duffel bag, just snatched it right off her shoulder. The strap caught on her arm and yanked her sideways. Hey! Mariah reached for it. Rusk dumped the whole bag onto the dirty floor. Clothes spilled out. Her phone charger, a paperback book, deodorant rolling toward someone's feet. Her father's old prayer card fluttered down like a dying bird. Look at this, Rusk said, kicking through her things. Acting all calm, but you're sweating now, aren't you? Mariah bent to gather her belongings. You have no right. Rusk's hand shot out. He grabbed her wrist and twisted it behind her back. Pain shot up her arm. Her shoulders screamed. Don't touch evidence, he snarled. You think I'm stupid? Think you can grab something before I see it? Get your hands off me, Mariah said through gritted teeth. Or what? Rusk twisted harder. You gonna file a complaint? You gonna call my supervisor? He laughed, ugly and loud. He's standing right there. The Marines veteran on the bench stood up. Officer, that's enough. Sir, step back, Maddox said, moving between them. This is an active investigation. Investigation of what? The man asked. Suspected smuggling, Rusk announced. His voice carried across baggage claim. This woman is transporting illegal materials. Probably drugs, maybe worse. That's a lie, Mariah said. Rusk yanked her arm higher. Shut your mouth. 10 feet away, a gray-haired woman in a purple cardigan raised her phone. She held it steady, like she'd done this before. Nobody noticed her. Just another grandmother waiting for her ride. The case, Maddox said. Let's see what's worth protecting. He popped the latches. The locks held. He produced a multi-tool and worked at them with practiced movements. The first lock gave way, then the second. Inside sat a badge presentation box, official documents with the City of Hartsfield seal, and a black evidence drive marked Internal Affairs, Confidential. Maddox's hands stopped moving, just for a second. His eyes flicked to Rusk, then back to the case. Could all be fake, Rusk said. These people get real clever. Fake badges, fake documents. Probably stole them from somewhere. Officers, Mariah said, fighting to keep her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder. You're making a mistake you cannot come back from. Look at those documents. Read them. I said shut up, Rusk said. Maddox closed the case without touching the paper. Suspicious materials. We'll need to verify their authenticity at the station. You know what those are, Mariah said. You saw the seal. You saw the badge. All I see, Maddox said slowly, is someone who refused to answer simple questions. Someone who got aggressive when asked about suspicious items. Someone who might be impersonating a police officer. The woman in purple moved slightly closer. Her phone stayed raised. She had the steady hands of someone who'd spent years holding chalk at a blackboard. Turn around, Rusk ordered. When Mariah didn't move fast enough, he spun her himself. Her shoulder made a popping sound. She bit down on a gasp. The cuffs came out. Cold metal clicked around her wrists. Too tight. The edges bit into her skin. You are under arrest, Rusk announced. His voice boomed across the terminal. He wanted everyone to hear. Wanted them all to see her humiliation. Rusk shoved her forward. Move it! The walk through the terminal felt like a mile. Business travelers looked up from their phones. Families stared. A teenage boy recorded with his phone until his mother slapped it down. Look at her, someone whispered. What did she do? Probably drugs, another voice said. They always catch them at baggage claim. Mariah kept her head up, back straight. Every step measured despite the cuffs cutting into her wrists. She'd learned in the army, when they try to break you, give them nothing. Behind them, the woman in purple followed. Not too close, not obvious, just another traveler heading toward ground transportation. She kept her phone low now, still recording. The airport police office sat behind an unmarked door near the rental car counters. Rusk used his badge to buzz them in. The hallway smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Big Shot thought she could just walk through, Rusk said, pushing her into the holding room. Thought she was too important to answer questions. The room was small. Gray walls, one table, 3 chairs, a camera in the corner with a red light that should have been on. It wasn't. Maddox closed the door. Sit. Mariah sat. The cuffs made it awkward. Acting all high and mighty, Rusk continued. Like you're somebody special. Like the rules don't apply to you. Brent, Maddox said, go start the paperwork. I want to hear what she says when... Now. Rusk's face darkened, but he left. The door clicked shut. Maddox sat across from her. He pulled out his notepad, trying to look official, trying to process this fast before the morning shift arrived, before real supervisors showed up. Here's what happens, he said. You'll sign a statement saying, this was a misunderstanding. We'll release you with a warning about failing to comply with security procedures. Nobody needs to know about this. Mariah said nothing. Or we can do this the hard way. Federal charges for impersonating an officer, possession of fraudulent document, that internal affairs drive, stolen property. Still nothing. Maddox's jaw tightened. You think silence helps you? I've got your fake badges, your fake papers, your... Open the leather folder. Her voice was calm, controlled. It made him angrier. What? From my case. The leather folder. Open it. I don't take orders from... Open it. Something in her tone made him stop. He went to her confiscated items piled on the corner table, found the leather folder, flipped it open, ready to mock whatever fake documents she'd created. The blood drained from his face. Official City of Hartsfield letterhead. The mayor's signature. The city seal. Appointment order. Captain Mariah Vale, Commanding Officer, Hartsfield, Regional Airport Police Division. Effective date, tomorrow. The paper shook in his hands. He read it again. Checked the signatures. Real. The seals. Real. The authorization codes. All real. No, he whispered. The door burst open. Rusk strutted back in. Computers being slow. Hey, she crying yet? These types always... Brent? Maddox's voice came out strangled. What? Maddox held up the appointment order. Rusk squinted at it. Read it. Read it again. His cocky grin melted like ice in hot water. That can't be? It's real, Maddox said. The room went silent except for the buzz of fluorescent lights. Captain Vale, Maddox started. His voice cracked. This was a misunderstanding. We received an alert. We had to check. You understand? We were just doing our jobs. Mariah finally spoke. A misunderstanding? Yes, absolutely. Just a mix-up. We'll get you out of these cuffs right away. Why was a lawful traveler searched without proof? Maddox opened his mouth, closed it. Why was my sealed case opened? Nothing. Why did Officer Rusk continue after seeing official seals? Rusk backed toward the door like she might attack. His hand fumbled for the handle. Mariah's voice never rose, never shook. That made it worse. A misunderstanding ends when the truth appears. You kept going. Maddox's fingers hovered over the keyboard, not typing. His forehead gleamed with sweat under the harsh fluorescent lights. Pull up the alert, Mariah repeated. Her voice stayed steady, controlled. The cuff marks on her wrist had already turned purple. System slow tonight, Maddox said. Maintenance window. You know how it is. I know you're stalling. Rusk shifted by the door, looking like he wanted to bolt. His earlier swagger had vanished completely. Now he just looked scared. Listen, Captain, Maddox tried again. We can sort this out tomorrow. Let's get you comfortable. Get you some coffee. The terminal log. Now. Maddox's jaw tightened. Reluctantly, he turned to the computer and typed. The screen flickered before displaying a suspicious person alert. According to the entry, a black female in her 30s carrying a locked case had been flagged for possible contraband or stolen property. The alert had been entered under Sergeant Maddox's credentials at 11:47 p.m. Mariah studied the timestamp and felt her stomach tighten. The alert had been created 20 minutes before her plane had even touched down. That's impossible, Maddox said quickly. I wasn't even at that terminal. Someone used my login. Happens all the time. People share passwords when... Who knew I was carrying a locked case? The question hung in the air like smoke. Maddox's mouth opened, closed, opened again. The alert mentioned a locked case. Specific. Not a bag, not luggage, a locked case. Mariah stepped closer to the screen. Who knew that detail? Could have been TSA. They scan everything. TSA doesn't enter our alerts. Rusk finally spoke up, voice shaky. Cole, what is going on? Shut up, Brent. You said it was routine. You said she looked suspicious. I said shut up. Mariah studied them both. Rusk, panicking and confused. Maddox, calculating and cornered. The dynamic told her everything. Officer Rusk, when did Sergeant Maddox tell you about the alert? Rusk's eyes darted between them. He called me, said to meet him at baggage claim, said we had a possible smuggler coming in. Lyle Hargrave walked into the airport police office at 4:47 a.m. like he owned the place, which, in a way, he did. His suit was perfect. His smile was wider. He carried 2 cups of coffee and the confidence of a man who'd buried bigger problems than this. Captain Vale, he extended a cup toward her. Rough first night. Thought you could use this? Mariah didn't take it. She stood by the window overlooking the empty tarmac, watching maintenance crews prep for morning flights. Her wrist throbbed where the cuffs had bitten into skin. Deputy Mayor, you're up early. Well, when I heard about the misunderstanding, I came right away. He set both cups on the desk and settled into a chair like they were old friends. These things happen. New faces, late nights, everyone's on edge. Nobody's fault, really. It wasn't a misunderstanding. His smile flickered, just for a second. Of course not. Poor choice of words. What I mean is, we can frame this properly. Control the narrative before it spirals. Frame it how? Simple miscommunication between dedicated officers doing their jobs. You were tired from travel. They were following protocol. Everyone shakes hands, learns from it, moves forward. Mariah turned from the window. Under the overhead lights, the bruises on her wrist looked darker. They entered a false alert using Maddox's credentials. They conducted an illegal search. They arrested me without cause. Allegedly. I was there, and I'm sure it felt very real to you. Hargrave leaned back, still smiling, always smiling. But perception isn't always reality. Sometimes our experience is color. Are you calling me a liar? God, no. I'm saying memory gets fuzzy under stress. Details shift. What matters is how we present this to the public. He picked up one of the coffees, took a sip. The airport expansion vote is in 6 weeks. 20,000 jobs on the line. Federal grants worth $200 million. Do we really want to torpedo all that over one awkward encounter? Awkward. Mariah tasted the word. That's what you're calling it. What would you call it? Criminal. The smile finally died. Hargrave set down his cup slowly, deliberately. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its warmth. Captain Vale, let me paint you a picture. City Legal reviews this incident. They find a new commanding officer who arrived unannounced, refused to identify herself properly, resisted reasonable questions, and then claimed persecution when standard procedures were followed. That's not what happened, isn't it? Because from where I sit, it looks like someone trying to manufacture a scandal, create public sympathy, build a case for the reforms she was already planning to push. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Some might say you provoked this whole thing. Some might say you're threatening me. I'm protecting you, and this city, and every person whose paycheck depends on that airport running smoothly. He moved toward the door, then paused. The officers made an error in judgment. They'll be counseled, retrained. But if you push this publicly, if you try to burn them down, the only person who'll get burned is you. Mariah watched him reach for the door handle. They're suspended pending investigation. No, they're not. He didn't turn around. Check your email. Chief Pike rescinded those orders an hour ago. Officer Rusk and Sergeant Maddox remain on active duty until a full review is completed, which, given our backlog, could take months. The door clicked shut behind him. Mariah stood alone in the fluorescent glare. The coffee cups sat untouched on the desk, still steaming. She could feel the weight of the building around her. Every wall, every camera, every officer who'd choose loyalty to corruption over justice. She walked to the duty board mounted on the wall, 3 dozen nameplates in neat rows. Officer B. Rusk, Sergeant C. Maddox. Still there, still active, still protected. Her fingers found Rusk's nameplate first. She pulled it free with a sharp snap. Then Maddox's. The metal pieces felt heavier than they should. She crossed to the command office. Her office, technically, though she hadn't even unpacked yet. The internal affairs drive sat on the desk where she'd left it. The drive Maddox had been so interested in. The drive someone had tried to intercept. The safe behind the desk was older than her career. She spun the combination, placed the drive inside, and locked it tight. Then we start before they know I've started. The briefing room smelled like burnt coffee and fear. 40 officers packed the space, backs straight, eyes forward. City staff lined the walls. News cameras pointed at the podium like weapons. Everyone waited for the new captain to smile. shake hands, and pretend last night never happened. Mariah Vale stood at the front in her dress uniform. The bruise on her wrist was hidden beneath her sleeve, but she could still feel it, throbbing, reminding. Deputy Mayor Hargrave sat in the front row, that practiced smile plastered across his face. Chief Warren Pike fidgeted beside him, sweating despite the air conditioning. "Good morning," Mariah said. Silence. "I'm Captain Mariah Vale, your new commanding officer." A few officers shifted. Someone coughed. The cameras kept rolling. "I know some of you are aware of an incident that occurred last night. I was detained and arrested by members of this division." The room got tighter. Hargrave's smile widened. Pike looked like he might vomit. "That incident," Mariah continued, "revealed deeper issues that require immediate attention." Hargrave leaned forward slightly, waiting for her to pivot, to soften, to play the game. "Effective immediately. I'm ordering a comprehensive 30-day integrity audit." The room exploded in whispers. Officers turned to each other. Someone muttered, "Here we go," loud enough for the cameras to catch. Mariah raised her voice. "Every stop, every search, every seizure, every complaint filed against this division in the past 2 years will be reviewed." "Captain Vale," Hargrave stood, still smiling for the cameras. "Perhaps we could discuss the scope." "The scope is complete transparency." She didn't look at him. "Any officer who conducted searches without probable cause, seized property without documentation, or intimidated travelers into silence will be held accountable." Rusk sat 3 rows back, his face red as raw meat. Maddox stood near the door, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Additionally," Mariah said, "Officer Brent Rusk is suspended without pay pending investigation." Rusk shot up. "You can't." "Sit down, officer. This is absurd." "Sit down or be escorted out." 2 loyal officers grabbed Rusk's shoulders, forced him back into his chair. The cameras caught every second. Sergeant Cole Maddox is placed on administrative reassignment, restricted from public contact. Maddox didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at her with eyes cold as winter stones. "Any questions?" Dozens of hands stayed down. The silence felt like held breath. "Dismissed." The room emptied fast. Officers huddled in groups, voices low and angry. Hargrave approached the podium, cameras finally off. "Congratulations, Captain. You just declared war on your own department. I declared accountability." "Same thing, in their eyes." He straightened his tie. "You know what happens to commanders who can't keep their troops in line? They get replaced. They get eaten." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "These men have families, mortgages, years of service. You think they'll just roll over because you wave some audit around? I think they'll follow the law." He laughed, actually laughed. "God, you really believe that? How refreshing." He headed for the door, then stopped. "You've made a very lonely choice, Captain Vale. When you're drowning in Union grievances, hostile officers, and missing evidence, remember, I tried to help you." The room emptied until only Chief Pike remained, still sweating. "Captain, I should have been there last night. I apologize for— Where's Detective Bell?" Pike blinked. "Bell? Amos Bell?" "Yes. He's probably in the basement, filing room. We moved him down there after some unpleasantness a few years back." "What kind of unpleasantness?" He refused to adjust a report when asked. Made things difficult for everyone. "Send him up." "Captain, Bell is nearly retired. He's not exactly—" "Send him up." 20 minutes later, Detective Amos Bell entered her office. 63 years old, gray beard neat as his pressed shirt. He moved like a man who'd learned to make himself small. His eyes were still sharp. "Captain Vale." He didn't sit until she gestured. "Heard you caused quite a stir upstairs." "Heard you caused one yourself a few years back." A ghost of a smile. "Different kind of stir. Mine was quieter. Career-ending, but quieter. Tell me about the missing property complaints." He studied her for a long moment. "You sure you want to open that particular box?" "I'm sure. Because once you start digging—" "Detective Bell." She leaned forward. "They arrested me last night, humiliated me in front of civilians, tried to destroy evidence I was carrying. So yes, I want to open every box they hoped would stay closed." Bell nodded slowly. "Complaints started about 2 years ago. Travelers reporting missing cash, jewelry, electronics, always the same pattern. Stopped for random screening. Items vanish. Complaints filed, then mysteriously lost. How many? Officially? Maybe a dozen made it to paper. Unofficially. I kept copies of everything before they demoted me. He stood. But, Captain, these files have a way of disappearing. I've seen whole boxes walk out of evidence. Then we better work fast. He headed for the door, stopped. You know they'll come for you, not just Rusk and Maddox. The whole system they're protecting. I know. And you're doing this anyway? Buried things can still be dug up, Detective. This time, his smile was real. I'll get those files. An hour later, Bell returned pushing a metal cart. 3 banker boxes, covers thick with dust. He set them on her desk with surprising gentleness. Captain, he said quietly, this is only what they forgot to destroy. That afternoon, Mariah and Bell descended into the basement of the airport police station. The air smelled like mold and forgotten paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, half of them dead or dying. Bell's old office was a converted storage room, barely big enough for 2 desks shoved together. Welcome to paradise, Bell said, clearing files off a chair for her. They moved me down here 3 years ago. Said it was temporary. They opened the first box. Complaint forms, some handwritten, some typed. Each one a story of loss. Rosa Martinez, Bell read, 68 years old. Stopped at security. Had her late husband's gold watch in her carry-on. Never saw it again. Mariah took the next file. James Washington, 75. Traveling to his grandson's graduation. $800 cash vanished during a pat-down. Marie Duval, Haitian immigrant. Her passport disappeared during secondary screening. Took her 6 months to get a replacement. File after file. Always the same officers' names. Rusk, Maddox, sometimes others. Always the same outcome. Property gone, complaints buried. Look at the patterns. Bell spread papers across the desk. Older passengers, people of color, immigrants, working folks who carry cash because they don't trust banks, people they thought couldn't fight back. Exactly. Mariah picked up a folder marked with a small cross. Inside, Lorraine Baptiste's complaint. 72 years old, church treasurer. Stopped while carrying $8,400 in fundraiser money. Jesus, Mariah whispered. That one haunts me, Bell said. Sweet lady. Been raising money for youth programs for 40 years. They destroyed her. Mariah read the report. Maddox and Rusk had detained Lorraine for 2 hours. Claimed her cash was suspicious. When she explained about the church fundraiser, they laughed. Called her a liar. The money vanished into evidence and never came back. Her complaint was filed as resolved. No wrongdoing found. Bell's jaw tightened. I tried to help her. Got told to mind my own business or join her on the no-fly list. You have her address? 2847 Magnolia Street. Little yellow house with the Virgin Mary in the garden. That evening, they parked outside Lorraine Baptiste's home. The house was modest but loved. Fresh paint, swept porch, flowers in every window box. A statue of Mary stood among roses, hands open in blessing. Lorraine answered on the second knock. Small woman, silver hair in neat braids, wearing a house dress with tiny flowers. Her eyes went wide, seeing uniforms. Mrs. Baptiste, I'm Captain Mariah Vale. This is Detective Bell. We'd like to talk about what happened at the airport. Lorraine's hand tightened on the door. I told everything 2 years ago. Nobody listened. I'm listening now. Something in Mariah's voice made Lorraine pause. She studied them both, then stepped aside. The living room was a shrine to family and faith. Photos covered every surface. Grandchildren, church groups, mission trips. A worn Bible sat open on the coffee table. Would you like sweet tea? Lorraine asked, already moving toward the kitchen. Please don't trouble yourself. Child, in this house we offer hospitality, even to police who finally remembered my name. She returned with 3 glasses on a tray, hands slightly shaking. They sat in chairs probably older than Mariah. Tell me what happened, Mariah said gently. Lorraine set down her glass. I was flying to Birmingham, church conference. Had $8,400 in cash. Money we'd raised selling plates and having bake sales for 2 years. For the youth center. Her voice stayed steady, but her hands twisted a tissue. That Rusk man stopped me at security. Said I looked nervous. I explained about the money, showed him the church letterhead, the deposit slip, everything. He called over Sergeant Maddox. What did Maddox do? Smiled. The word came out bitter. Smiled like I was some fool. Said anybody could fake church papers. They took me to a little room. searched my bags, my pockets, counted the money real slow, like they were already spending it. Bell's knuckles went white around his glass. They said it was suspicious for an old black woman to carry so much cash. Said I must be a drug mule. Lorraine laughed, sharp and hurt. Me? A drug mule? I've been teaching Sunday school since before they were born. What happened to the money? Evidence, they said, would be returned after investigation. I called every week for 6 months. Finally, some lady told me to stop harassing them or face charges. Lorraine stood, walked to an old secretary desk, pulled out an envelope, worn soft from handling. This held that money. All those fish fries and car washes, all those kids counting change after church. She handed it to Mariah. Keep calling it evidence, but we both know what it really was. Theft. Mariah held the empty envelope like it was sacred. I'm reopening your case. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm not. You're a nice woman, Captain. I can see that. But those men got power, got protection. They made me feel like a criminal in front of everybody. Made me afraid to fly to see my own grandchildren. Lorraine's eyes filled but didn't spill. Promises don't scare powerful men. Only consequences do. Then I'll make sure there are consequences. Lorraine studied her for a long moment. You really believe that? Yes. Why? Because they did the same thing to me last night. Arrested me, humiliated me, would have destroyed my evidence if they could. Lorraine reached over, touched Mariah's bruised wrist with surprising gentleness. Then you understand. I understand. They finished their tea in silence. At the door, Lorraine caught Mariah's arm. Be careful, child. Men like that don't just steal money. They steal dignity, peace, safety. And when cornered, she didn't finish. Walking back to the car, Bell's phone buzzed. He read the message, face going dark. Captain, what is it? He showed her the screen, local news alert. A video thumbnail showed Maddox in his dress uniform, standing before cameras. Turn it up. Maddox's voice filled the car. Being persecuted by a commander with a personal vendetta. Captain Vale is retaliating because my partner and I properly questioned her suspicious behavior at the airport. Now she's dragging innocent officers through the mud to justify her radical agenda. Bell lowered the phone. He's going on offense. Good, Mariah said. Angry men make mistakes. Angry men also destroy careers. She looked back at Lorraine's yellow house, the Mary statue blessing empty air. Thought about that empty envelope, soft from tears and time. Then we better make sure we destroy theirs first. Bell started the car. Maddox has friends at Channel 7. By tomorrow, half the city will think you're the villain. Let them. Mariah's voice carried steel. Tomorrow, I'll have Lorraine Baptiste telling her story. Let's see whose truth weighs more. The morning news played on 3 different screens in the airport police briefing room. Mariah stood alone, watching her career burn. Officer Rusk has served this community for 14 years without a single complaint. The union representative's face filled the screen, practiced concern in every line. Now he's suspended because he dared to do his job, because he questioned someone who happened to have political connections. Click. Next channel. Maddox's attorney, a sharp-suited man with perfect teeth. Captain Vale clearly came here with an agenda. Within hours of arrival, she targeted veteran officers. This is retaliation, pure and simple. Click. Sources inside City Hall say the mayor is deeply concerned about Captain Vale's aggressive approach. Turn that poison off. Detective Bell entered, carrying coffee and exhaustion. Behind him, 2 younger officers quickly looked away. The whole building was choosing sides, and most were picking the safe one. How bad? Mariah asked. Channel 7 ran Maddox's interview 3 times this morning. Channel 11 has Rusk's wife crying about their mortgage. Social media's worse. Bell handed her coffee. Someone leaked that you were arrested for suspicious behavior. They're leaving out the part where you're the captain. Of course they are. The door opened again. Deputy Mayor Hargrave entered like he owned the air itself, tailored suit and campaign smile. Captain Vale, unfortunate morning. Is it? His smile tightened. This media circus helps no one. The officers involved are willing to accept letters of reprimand. You keep your command. Everyone moves forward. Letters of reprimand for false arrest? For procedural confusion during a heightened security period. They knew who I was when they cuffed me. Can you prove that in court? Because their attorneys will prove you refused to immediately identify yourself. They'll prove you resisted their lawful commands. Hargrave stepped closer, lowering his voice. They'll make you look difficult, Captain. Angry, vindictive. Everything certain people already want to believe about women like you in positions like this. The words hit exactly where he aimed them. Mariah felt the familiar weight, the exhausting math of fighting, while black, female, and in charge. Take the deal, Hargrave continued. Save your reputation. Save your reforms. Live to fight the battles that matter. This battle matters. To whom? Some church lady's old complaint? Travelers who've already moved on? He checked his phone. The mayor's patience has limits, Captain. I'm trying to help you. No. You're trying to bury this before it reaches wherever it really goes. Hargrave's mask slipped for just a second. Then the smile returned. Noon, Captain. That's when the union files their formal complaint against you, unless we settle. He left, cologne lingering like a threat. Bell waited until the door closed. He's scared. Good. Scared men show their cards. Mariah turned back to the screens, now muted, but still showing Maddox's performance. We need... A knock interrupted. The desk sergeant peered in. Captain, you have a visitor. Says it's urgent. Evelyn Price entered like she was walking into her own classroom. Spine straight, chin high, decades of authority in every step. She carried a leather purse and the kind of presence that made grown officers stand straighter. Mrs. Price. Mariah rose, surprised. Sit down, child, both of you. We need to talk about what I saw. All of what I saw. Bell closed the door, checked the hallway. Evelyn waited until they were truly alone. I taught school for 41 years, she began. Inner city Birmingham. You learn to watch everything. Reflections in windows, movements behind backs, hands that take what isn't theirs. She pulled out her phone, steady despite her age. I started recording when that Rusk boy raised his voice. Kept recording even when they moved you. She opened the video. But I wasn't just watching you. The footage played. Shaky, but clear enough. Rusk's aggression, Mariah's calm responses, the brutal wrist twist, but Evelyn fast-forwarded. Here, watch the glass partition behind them. Mariah leaned in. In the reflection, barely visible, Maddox opened her evidence case. His body blocked the direct view, but the glass caught his movement. His hand went in, came out, moved to his jacket. He took something. Bell breathed. I taught algebra for 20 years before they let me teach advanced classes, Evelyn said. You learn angles matter. What you can't see straight on, you might see sideways. Mariah watched again. The movement was quick, practiced. Maddox had stolen from her case while Rusk performed for the crowd. That same afternoon, Mariah spread the access logs across her desk like evidence in a murder case, which maybe it was, the murder of trust, one stolen envelope at a time. Maddox badged into the evidence room at 3:47 a.m. Bell traced the timeline with his finger. 4 hours after you suspended him. He had help, Mariah noted. Someone had to disable the alerts, or someone high enough that alerts didn't matter. They'd requested every log from the night of her arrest. Evidence room, secure storage, the old customs corridor that hadn't been used since the terminal expansion. Most departments would have stalled, but Evelyn's video had opened doors, carefully, quietly, with several officials suddenly eager to distance themselves from whatever was coming. Here, Bell found it. Customs corridor, entry at 4:15 a.m., same night. Any cameras? Decommissioned when they moved customs to the new terminal. Bell looked up. Convenient. Mariah's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She nearly ignored it, then answered. Captain? The voice was scared, male, Hispanic accent. This is Thomas. Tomas Alvarez. From maintenance? She remembered him from the files. 10-year employee, clean record, worked nights. I'm listening, Thomas. I need to tell someone about the lockers. 20 minutes later, they met him in the underground parking garage. Thomas kept checking over his shoulder, keys rattling in nervous hands. I got family, Captain. 3 kids. This job, it's all I got. No one's threatening your job, Thomas. They did before, when I asked about the corridor. He swallowed hard. 6 months ago, I saw Maddox and Rusk down there, middle of my shift, carrying bags. What kind of bags? Like evidence bags, clear ones, but they weren't logging nothing. I asked if they needed help. Maddox told me I was seeing things, said if I wanted to keep seeing my paycheck, I'd forget what I didn't see. Where exactly? Mariah kept her voice calm, though her pulse hammered. Old customs corridor, behind the service gate. There's lockers back there from when agents stored contraband. He pulled out a janitor's key ring. They think maintenance can't get in, but we got keys to everything, for cleaning. Belle and Mariah exchanged looks. Will you show us? Tomas's hands shook worse. My job is protected. I give you my word. Your word against theirs? My word with a federal investigation behind it. It was partly true, would be fully true soon. Thomas led them through service tunnels that smelled of industrial cleaner and old concrete. Downstairs, most people forgot existed. Past signs warning of restricted access in 3 languages. The customs corridor was a time capsule. Dust-covered counters, old inspection stations, faded security posters from before 9/11 changed everything. Back here, Tomas unlocked a service gate that screamed on rusty hinges. More corridor. Darker. Their flashlights caught shapes. Jesus Christ, Belle whispered. A row of lockers, like high school gym storage, but heavy-duty. Most had padlocks. New padlocks on old metal. Mariah called for bolt cutters and a forensic team. While they waited, she photographed everything. The dust patterns showing recent traffic. Footprints, a fresh cigarette butt, Rusk's brand, she'd bet her badge. The first locker cracked open like a confession. Watches. Dozens. Some still had luggage tags attached. The second held jewelry in evidence bags, each with a date but no case number. The third made Mariah's chest tight. Cash. Sorted by denomination. Rubber-banded. And there, between stacks of 20s, a manila church envelope. Riverside Baptist Building Fund, printed in careful letters. Lorraine Baptiste's shaky signature on the seal. $8,400, Mariah said quietly, for a new roof. Belle documented while Mariah opened more lockers. Passports, mostly foreign. Medication bottles with names that would match complaint files. Electronics. A child's iPad with unicorn stickers. How much? Belle asked. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe more. Mariah felt sick and furious. Every item a person, a story, a violation. The forensic team arrived. More photos, evidence markers, chain of custody forms. Everything by the book. Everything perfect. No room for Maddox's lawyers to cry misconduct. Mariah picked up Lorraine's envelope with gloved hands, held it like the sacred thing it was. Money raised through fish fries and bake sales, dollar by dollar, prayer by prayer. Her phone rang. Hargrave. Captain Vale, I hear you're conducting an unauthorized search. Fully authorized. Judge Martinez signed the warrant an hour ago. Silence. Then, carefully, what did you find? Mariah looked at the violated treasures of 100 travelers. Everything they thought they buried. Captain, let's discuss this before... Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., press conference. That's not wise. Wisdom is knowing when to stop negotiating with thieves. She hung up, looked at Belle, at Thomas, at the forensic team carefully cataloging years of cruelty. Tomorrow, she said, holding Lorraine's envelope, the city tells the truth. Before dawn touched the sky, Mariah's headlights cut through empty streets toward headquarters. She'd barely slept, mind racing with plans for the press conference. Lorraine's envelope, the hidden lockers, the passports. Every piece of evidence would speak today. She found Belle waiting by the secure storage entrance. His face made her stomach drop. Don't tell me. Captain, his voice cracked. It's gone. What do you mean gone? He opened the storage room door. Empty shelves stared back. No boxes, no evidence bags, no envelope with Lorraine Baptiste's careful signature. The room smelled of bleach, like someone had scrubbed away their crimes, along with the proof. How? The word came out sharp enough to cut. Access log says your command code opened the door at 3:47 a.m. I was home at 3:47 a.m. I know that. You know that. But the system says different. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Deputy Mayor Hargrave appeared with 2 city attorneys flanking him like bodyguards. His smile could have frozen hell. Captain Vale, we need to discuss a serious matter. Unbelievable. Careful. His smile widened, threatening a city official, while under investigation for evidence tampering would be unwise. One of the lawyers, a woman with dead eyes, stepped forward. Captain Vale, you're hereby placed on administrative leave pending investigation into the disappearance of critical evidence from this secure facility. You know I didn't. The access logs indicate otherwise. Hargrave's voice dripped false concern. Your command code, your responsibility. The evidence you claim to have found has vanished under your watch. The evidence I documented, photographed, catalogued with a full forensic team. Photos can be staged. Items can be planted. The second lawyer, younger, eager to impress. Without physical evidence, we only have your word. And given your confrontational approach to this department, your word carries certain questions. Get out of my station. Actually, Hargrave checked his watch. It's Chief Warren Pike's station. You're relieved of command, effective immediately. Please surrender your weapon and badge. The words hit like physical blows. Mariah's hand moved instinctively to her service weapon. Not to draw it, she wasn't that foolish, but to feel its weight one last time. This won't stand. It's already standing. Hargrave nodded toward the front entrance. Unless you'd prefer we escort you out past the media. They're quite eager to discuss the missing evidence. Through the hallway window, news vans clustered like vultures. Cameras ready. Microphones hungry. Bell stepped forward. This is wrong. I was there. I saw Detective Bell. The female attorney's voice could have cut glass. You're reassigned to records review, effective immediately. Basement level. Any discussion of ongoing investigations will be considered insubordination. Mariah removed her badge. The metal felt heavier than it should. Her weapon followed, each item placed on the desk like pieces of her soul. Captain, Bell started. It's okay, Amos. She kept her voice level, professional. They wanted her to explode, to give them more ammunition. Follow orders. The walk to the front entrance stretched like a funeral march. Officers watched from doorways. Some looked ashamed, others satisfied. Word traveled fast in a station. Outside, the cameras attacked, voices shouting questions about missing evidence, about abuse of power, about tampering with proof. Through the chaos, she saw him, Maddox, standing by a patrol car, clean uniform, sergeant stripes back on his sleeve. Rusk leaned against the station wall, that same smug smile from the airport. He tipped an imaginary hat as she passed. Her hands shook as she found her car. Not from fear, from rage so pure it burned. She'd played by every rule, documented every step, built an airtight case, and they'd stolen it like candy from a child. Inside the car, silence crashed down. The shaking got worse. She gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. All those people, Lorraine, the travelers who'd lost medicines, the immigrants whose passports vanished, all of them betrayed again. Her phone buzzed, voicemail notification. She almost deleted it. Probably another reporter, another vulture, but the number looked familiar. Lorraine Baptiste's voice filled the car, steady, stronger than Mariah had ever heard it. Captain Vale, I don't know what they did to you today, but I know what they did to me, and I am not afraid anymore. You come by when you're ready. I'll have coffee on. The message ended. Mariah played it again, then once more. She wiped her eyes, turned the key, and drove toward Lorraine's house instead of going home. Lorraine Baptiste's front porch still held the morning chill when Mariah pulled into the narrow driveway. The house looked smaller in daylight, faded yellow siding, flower boxes that had seen better seasons, a screen door that needed fixing. But the lights were on, and smoke curled from the chimney like a welcome. Before Mariah could knock, the door opened. Lorraine stood there in a church dress and cardigan, her gray hair pinned back neat as Sunday service. Behind her, voices murmured in the living room. Captain Vale. Lorraine's voice carried the same strength from the voicemail. Come in, child. We've been waiting. The living room smelled of coffee and old wood polish. Evelyn Price sat on the worn sofa, her teacher's posture straight as a ruler. Two other women Mariah didn't recognize occupied the chairs. One young, maybe 30, with tired eyes and calloused hands. The other older, Latino, clutching a manila envelope like a lifeline. Sit, Lorraine commanded, pointing to the kitchen table visible through the doorway. We need to talk proper. They gathered around Lorraine's kitchen table, scarred wood that had probably hosted decades of family meals and homework sessions. Mariah felt exposed without her badge, smaller without her authority. These women looked at her expectantly, and she had nothing to offer but failure. The evidence is gone. The words tasted bitter. Everything we found, the lockers, the stolen items, your envelope, all of it disappeared overnight. Did you take it? Lorraine asked. No. Then they stole it twice. First from us, then from you. Lorraine poured coffee from a percolator that belonged in a museum. That don't make it less true. The young woman leaned forward. I'm Sandra Torres. They took my grandmother's wedding ring 2 months ago. Sergeant Maddox said it looked suspicious for airport security. Never got it back. The older woman opened her envelope with shaking fingers. Carmen Gutierrez. My husband's medication, heart pills. Very expensive. Officer Rusk claimed they could be illegal drugs. We had prescription bottles, doctor letters, everything. He threw them in the trash and said we could file a complaint. Did you? Evelyn asked. 3 times. No one called back. Mariah's stomach clenched. I'm sorry. I thought I could. Authority is not the same as truth, Lorraine interrupted. You lost your badge. You didn't lose being right. Evelyn pulled out a small notebook. Teacher habits, dying hard. My retired teachers network covers 3 counties. Church contacts go even further. If these officers have been stealing from travelers, there are more victims. What good does talking do? Sandra's voice carried the weight of someone who'd been disappointed before. They'll just deny everything again. Not if we all talk at once. Evelyn's eyes sparked with the same fire that had made her record the airport arrest. 41 years teaching middle school, you learn a few things about bullies. They count on people staying isolated and afraid. Lorraine stood and returned with an old church directory. Phone numbers filled every page. Start calling? Tell people what happened? Ask if airport police ever took their things. By noon, the living room buzzed with quiet activity. Evelyn worked her phone like a campaign manager, reaching out to former colleagues, book club members, retired principals across the region. Carmen called relatives, friends from her citizenship class, anyone who'd traveled through Hartsfield Regional in the past year. Each conversation followed the same pattern: initial skepticism, then recognition, then anger. Stories poured out like water from a broken dam. Cash disappeared during random searches. Jewelry vanished from carry-on bags. Medications were confiscated and never returned. Always the same officers, always the same excuses. Sandra kept a growing list of names and dates. 17 people so far, all different flights, different months. Same pattern. More coming? Evelyn reported. Mrs. Patterson from my bridge club is driving over. Says Rusk took her husband's watch last Christmas. The front door opened without a knock. Detective Bell stepped inside, looking older than his years. He'd changed from his uniform into civilian clothes, but exhaustion clung to him like smoke. Amos, Mariah stood. You shouldn't be here. Your pension don't mean much if I can't look at myself in the mirror. He pulled up a chair. They got me filing 20-year-old burglary reports. Figured I might as well do something useful instead. Lorraine poured him coffee without asking. What can you tell us that they don't want told? Bell opened a folder he'd carried in. Internal access logs going back 18 months. Every time those storage lockers were opened, every time evidence went missing from the system. Patterns clear as daylight if you know how to read it. Is that enough? Sandra asked. Not in court. They'll claim the logs were tampered with. Bell rubbed his temples. But it shows we're not making this up. The afternoon brought more visitors. An elderly man whose passport disappeared during a connection. A young mother whose baby formula was confiscated and discarded. A college student whose textbooks were seized as suspicious cargo. Each story added weight to the growing pile of receipts, complaint numbers, and witness statements. Near evening, a soft knock interrupted their work. Mariah opened the door to find Tomas Alvarez standing on the porch, hat in his hands, shame written across his face. Captain, I need to tell you something. She let him in. The room went quiet as he stood awkwardly by the door. I lied when I took back my statement. They threatened my job, my family's insurance, but what they're doing, it ain't right. We understand, Lorraine said gently. Fear makes people do things they regret. There's something else, something I didn't tell you before. Thomas twisted his hat. That old customs corridor, it's got freight cameras, independent system, runs on a different server than the regular airport security. Maintenance uses it to track cargo movement in the restricted areas. Bell sat up straight. Airport police don't control those cameras? No, sir. Different department entirely. Old system, barely works half the time, but it records everything in those corridors. If those officers moved stolen goods through there, the footage might still exist, Mariah finished. Been working freight security for 6 years. Never seen anyone check those recordings. Most people forget the cameras exist. The room erupted in excited murmurs. Carmen crossed herself. Sandra gripped her manila envelope tighter. Bell pulled out his phone. "I know someone. Federal inspector. Owes me from an old case. If we can get that footage authenticated properly." "Call her," Mariah said. Bell stepped onto the porch for privacy. Through the window they watched him pace, gesturing as he explained the situation. The conversation stretched long minutes. Finally, he returned. "Inspector Naomi Grant. She's driving down from Atlanta tonight. Says if we can access those cameras legally, she'll authenticate whatever we find." The freight control room sat buried 3 levels beneath the terminal, forgotten by most airport staff, and ignored by the gleaming renovations above. Flickering fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across banks of outdated monitors and cable-thick wiring that belonged to another decade. The air smelled of dust and electrical components slowly dying. Thomas led them through a service corridor that required 2 key cards and a maintenance override code. His footsteps echoed against concrete walls painted institutional green sometime in the distant past. "Most people don't even know this room exists," he whispered, unlocking a heavy steel door. "Been down here maybe 10 times in 6 years. System runs itself mostly." Federal Inspector Naomi Grant examined the cramped space with professional interest. She was a compact woman in her 50s, with sharp eyes and the kind of methodical patience that made corrupt officials nervous. Her federal credentials hung from a lanyard that caught the overhead light. "This system is completely separate from airport police servers?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Different department, different funding, different everything. Freight security runs on old DOT regulations from before the airport expansion." Tomas powered up a monitor that hummed to life reluctantly. Airport police probably forgot it existed. Detective Bell positioned himself near the door, listening for footsteps or elevator sounds from the corridor above. His service weapon remained holstered, but his hand rested near it out of habit. "How far back do these recordings go?" Mariah asked. "Depends on storage capacity. Maybe 6 weeks before the system overwrites itself." Tomas navigated through dated menu screens that looked like they belonged in a computer museum. "What dates are we looking for?" "Start with last week, after I was suspended." The monitor flickered, then displayed a grainy black-and-white view of the abandoned customs corridor. Timestamps showed the footage was from 3 days ago, hours after Mariah had been escorted from headquarters. "There!" Bell pointed at the screen. Movement on the left. 2 figures appeared in the frame, carrying dark bags through the corridor. Even with the poor video quality, their builds and movement patterns were unmistakable. "Maddox and Rusk," Mariah said quietly. They watched the officers unlock the service gate she had discovered, then emerge with multiple bags and containers, the stolen evidence from the hidden lockers. Maddox checked his watch repeatedly while Rusk loaded items into what looked like airport maintenance carts. "They're moving everything to a different location," Grant observed, destroying the evidence trail. "Can you enhance this footage?" Mariah asked. "Federal lab can clean it up enough for court." Grant connected a recording device to the system. "But this is already admissible as is. Timestamps, independent system, chain of custody, intact." Tomas scrolled backward through more dates. "Let me check earlier footage, see if there's more." The days rolled backward on the screen. More late-night visits from Maddox and Rusk. Occasional appearances by other officers Mariah did not recognize. The theft operation had been running for months, maybe longer. Then Thomas stopped scrolling. "Wait. Go back to that timestamp," Mariah said. 2 nights before her arrival in the city. The corridor was empty for long minutes. Then 3 figures entered the frame. 2 were familiar, Maddox and Rusk conducting their usual business. The 3rd figure made Mariah's breath catch. Deputy Mayor Lyle Hargrave. "I knew it," Bell muttered. On screen, Hargrave walked through the restricted corridor like he owned it. He examined the hidden lockers while Maddox opened them for inspection. Rusk stood guard near the entrance. The 3 men talked for several minutes, Hargrave pointing at specific items, Maddox nodding and taking notes. "He's not covering up a scandal," Mariah realized. "He's managing a criminal enterprise." Grant leaned closer to the monitor. "This changes everything. Federal prosecutors love corruption cases involving elected officials." They watched Hargrave inspect envelopes of cash, jewelry, and other seized items. He selected several pieces, slipping them into his jacket pockets. Maddox handed him what appeared to be a thick envelope. "He's taking a cut," Bell said. "Regular payments." The footage continued. Hargrave and Maddox discussed something intensely while examining a tablet computer. Then all three men left together, Hargrave checking his watch before disappearing from frame. "This was before I arrived in the city," Mariah said. "Before my arrest. They knew I was coming." Tomas advanced the timeline. More meetings between Hargrave and the corrupt officers, planning sessions, document exchanges. The airport arrest had not been random harassment by biased cops. It had been a calculated attempt to intercept her internal affairs drive before she could expose their operation. "They panicked when they saw the federal evidence case," Grant noted. "Figured if they discredited you immediately, they could bury whatever you brought. Instead, they created the perfect trap for themselves." Mariah watched Hargrave's image on the monitor. Every lie they told, every cover-up they attempted, it all led back to this. Grant finished copying the footage onto multiple drives. "I need to contact the federal prosecutor's office tonight. Organized theft, civil rights violations, conspiracy, public corruption. This is going to be a big case." Bell's radio crackled softly. He listened to the dispatcher, then turned to the group. "We need to move. Security sweep coming through this area in 20 minutes. They powered down the monitors and secured the room. Thomas locked each door behind them as they made their way back through the service corridors. The evidence drives felt heavy in Grant's briefcase. Weeks of planning and criminal activity compressed into digital files that would destroy careers and send people to prison. At the surface level, Grant shook hands with each of them. "I'll have preliminary authentication within hours, full analysis by morning. Whatever happens next, that footage is bulletproof evidence." As her federal vehicle disappeared into airport traffic, Mariah felt something she had not experienced since her arrest: genuine hope. Not just for clearing her own name, but for delivering justice to the travelers who had been victimized by people sworn to protect them. Her phone buzzed with an urgent message. Mariah read it twice, then showed Bell the screen. "City Council emergency session. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Special hearing on police department leadership and evidence handling procedures." Bell grimaced. "Hargrave's making his move, trying to destroy you publicly before the federal case can develop." "He doesn't know about the freight cameras," Mariah said. Yet, they stood in the terminal parking garage, surrounded by the quiet hum of overnight airport activity. Above them, delayed flights carried unsuspecting passengers through the same corridors where corruption had festered for months. Mariah's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a formal notice from the city attorney's office, copied to several local media outlets. The notice announced an emergency city council session scheduled for Thursday at 9 a.m. regarding Captain Mariah Vale's misconduct investigation. The hearing would include public testimony concerning alleged evidence tampering, abuse of authority, and departmental disruption. After reading the notice, Mariah showed it to Bell. He glanced at the screen and shook his head. "He's going to try to end your career on live television," Bell said. Mariah deleted the message and started walking toward her car. Let him try. The city council chamber buzzed with tense energy as people filed through security checkpoints and metal detectors. News crews positioned cameras along the side walls while reporters claimed seats in the front rows. Airport workers clustered together near the back, many still wearing their uniforms from overnight shifts. Police officers filled an entire section, some supporting Mariah, others clearly loyal to the old guard. Mariah entered through a side door, wearing her dress uniform with captain's bars gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. She carried only a thin folder and walked with measured steps to the designated chair facing the council dais. Behind her, she heard whispers and camera shutters clicking. Deputy Mayor Lyle Hargrave sat at the center of the raised platform, flanked by 4 other council members who looked uncomfortable with the early morning spectacle. His smile appeared confident, almost cheerful, as if he were about to resolve an unfortunate misunderstanding instead of destroying someone's career. Sergeant Cole Maddox and Officer Brent Rusk occupied seats near the front, their attorney positioned between them like a shield. Maddox wore a crisp civilian suit and maintained perfect posture, projecting the image of a professional wrongly accused. Rusk kept checking his phone and glancing toward the exit, less comfortable in the spotlight. This emergency session addresses serious concerns about leadership and evidence handling within our airport police division. Hargrave began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's sound system. Recent events have raised questions about Captain Vale's judgment and methods. Mariah sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. She had learned long ago that stillness could be more powerful than words. Captain Vale arrived in our city with a mandate to reform airport policing, Hargrave continued. Instead, she has created chaos. Good officers have been suspended without proper cause. Evidence has disappeared under her watch. Morale has collapsed. Several officers in the audience nodded. A few reporters scribbled notes. The victims Mariah had met remained silent, waiting. The missing property seized during Captain Vale's arrest represents a clear failure of command responsibility, Hargrave said. Federal evidence vanished from secure storage while under her direct control. This suggests either incompetence or deliberate misconduct. Maddox's attorney leaned forward slightly, satisfied with the narrative direction. His clients appeared vindicated, professional officers caught between politics and an unstable commander. Furthermore, Captain Vale's aggressive targeting of Sergeant Maddox and Officer Rusk appears retaliatory rather than investigative, Hargrave added. Both officers followed proper procedure when questioning a suspicious traveler. They could not have known her identity because she failed to identify herself as law enforcement. The chamber remained quiet, but tension filled the air like static before a thunderstorm. Hargrave's version of events sounded reasonable, even sympathetic. Two hard-working cops doing their jobs, then punished by an authority figure with hurt feelings and a political agenda. Captain Vale has had multiple opportunities to address these concerns privately, Hargrave said. Instead, she chose public confrontation and media attention. This pattern suggests someone more interested in personal vindication than professional responsibility. He paused, letting his words settle. Several council members nodded approval. The police officers looked increasingly confident. Maddox straightened his tie and whispered something to his attorney. Captain Vale, you may now respond to these allegations. Hargrave's tone suggested he expected either silence or a weak defense that would justify her immediate termination. Mariah stood slowly, smoothing her uniform jacket. She walked to the podium positioned in front of the council dais, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hargrave. Her voice was clear, professional, and completely calm. Before addressing your accusations, I would like to share one citizen statement with this chamber. Hargrave frowned slightly, but nodded. Proceed. Mariah opened her folder and removed a small remote control. Could someone activate the display screens, please? A technician near the back wall pressed several buttons. Large monitors descended from the ceiling on both sides of the chamber. The screens flickered to life, showing the city seal and meeting information. This citizen recorded the events at baggage claim on my first night in your city, Mariah said. She pressed a button on the remote. Evelyn Price's phone footage filled the screens. The chamber watched Officer Rusk grab Mariah's belongings, twist her arm behind her back, and accuse her of smuggling while passengers looked on in shock. Sergeant Maddox appeared calm and professional on camera, but his refusal to show the suspicious person alert was clearly visible. The audio quality captured every harsh word, every threat, every moment of public humiliation. Several people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. A few officers looked away from the screens. This woman is not a police officer, Mariah said as the footage played. She's a retired school principal who recognized abuse when she saw it. The video ended with Rusk snapping handcuffs onto Mariah's wrists, while she warned them about crossing a line they could not erase. The chamber remained silent for several seconds after the screens went dark. That footage proves nothing, Maddox's attorney called out. Officers conducted a lawful investigation based on reasonable suspicion. Perhaps, Mariah replied. Let's hear from the travelers your officers have investigated over the past 2 years. She gestured toward the back of the chamber. Lorraine Baptiste stood slowly, leaning on her walking stick. At 72, she moved carefully but with dignity that commanded attention. My name is Lorraine Baptiste. I am treasurer at Mount Olive Baptist Church. Her voice was soft but steady. Last September, I carried $8,400 in fundraiser money through this airport. Sergeant Maddox and Officer Rusk detained me for 3 hours. They searched my purse, my suitcase, and my body. Then, my money disappeared. She held up an empty envelope, yellowed with age. This is what they returned to me, empty. When I filed a complaint, I was told travel stress causes confusion in elderly passengers. 2 more victims stood. An immigrant father whose passport had vanished during a random inspection. A black woman whose prescription medication was confiscated and never returned. Each story followed the same pattern. Vulnerable travelers targeted, property seized, complaints ignored. Hargrave tried to interrupt. These allegations are unsubstantiated. Are they? Mariah pressed the remote again. Detective Amos Bell appeared on screen, standing behind a podium in what looked like a federal building. The timestamp showed the footage was recorded just hours earlier. I am Detective Amos Bell, 27 years with this police department. I have authenticated surveillance footage from the airport freight camera system. This footage shows the defendants moving evidence after Captain Vale was suspended. The screens switched to grainy black and white surveillance video. The chamber watched Maddox and Rusk carry bags through the abandoned customs corridor, emptying the hidden lockers Mariah had discovered. Then came the devastating moment. Deputy Mayor Lyle Hargrave appeared on camera, walking through the restricted corridor like he owned it, examining stolen property, selecting items for his jacket pockets. The chamber erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Officers turned to stare at Hargrave. Council members looked shocked and confused. Camera flashes exploded like strobe lights. "Turn off those screens!" Hargrave yelled, his composure finally cracking. "This is clearly doctored footage, designed to—" The main doors to the chamber burst open. Federal agents in dark suits entered swiftly, their badges visible on lanyards around their necks. The chamber exploded into chaos as federal agents moved with practiced precision toward their targets. Reporters scrambled for better camera angles, while council members shouted over each other, demanding explanations no one could provide. Maddox shot up from his seat, his calm mask finally cracking. He grabbed his attorney's briefcase and pushed toward the side aisle, moving like a man who understood his world was collapsing in real time. "Excuse me, pardon me," he muttered, shouldering past confused spectators who had no idea they were watching a manhunt unfold. Detective Bell rose from his seat near the wall. At 63, he moved slower than the federal agents, but his positioning was perfect. He stepped into Maddox's path just as the sergeant reached the side exit. "Going somewhere, Cole?" Bell's voice was quiet, almost conversational. Maddox's face twisted with desperate anger. "Get out of my way, old man." "I don't think so." Bell planted his feet wider, blocking the narrow aisle completely. "You ran from the truth long enough." A federal agent appeared behind Maddox before he could shove past Bell. "Sergeant Cole Maddox, you are under arrest for conspiracy, theft of federal evidence, and obstruction of justice." The handcuffs clicked shut around Maddox's wrists with a sound that cut through the chamber noise like a gunshot. His attorney watched helplessly as his client was led away, still protesting his innocence to anyone who would listen. Rusk's reaction was more violent. He overturned his chair and bolted for the main exit, shoving past elderly spectators and nearly knocking over a camera operator. His size and desperation cleared a path through the crowd. "Stop him!" someone yelled, but Rusk had already reached the double doors. He burst into the hallway outside the chamber, breathing hard and looking both ways like a trapped animal. The marble corridor stretched in both directions, lined with city offices and conference rooms. For a moment, it seemed like he might actually escape. Then Federal Inspector Naomi Grant stepped out of an alcove, directly into his path. She was 50 years old, built like someone who had spent decades chasing suspects, and completely unimpressed by Rusk's size advantage. "Officer Brent Rusk," she said calmly, "you are under arrest." Rusk tried to bull past her, using his shoulder like a football player. Grant sidestepped smoothly and grabbed his wrist, twisting it behind his back with textbook precision. Rusk hit the marble floor hard, his knees cracking against the stone. Federal charges include theft, conspiracy, and civil rights violations, Grant continued as she cuffed him. "You have the right to remain silent." Camera crews poured into the hallway, capturing every second of Rusk's arrest. His face pressed against the cold marble, hands secured behind his back, looking nothing like the intimidating officer who had humiliated travelers for years. Back in the chamber, Hargrave stood behind the council dais like it could protect him from what was happening. His political smile had vanished completely, replaced by the desperate calculation of a man watching his career disintegrate. "This is outrageous!" he shouted over the noise. "I demand immediate consultation with city legal. This is clearly political persecution designed to embarrass the mayor's office during budget negotiations." Inspector Grant returned to the chamber, straightening her jacket, after wrestling Rusk to the ground. She approached Hargrave with the same professional calm she had shown in the hallway. "Deputy Mayor Lyle Hargrave," she announced loud enough for every reporter to hear clearly. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit theft, and protection of criminal enterprise." Hargrave's face went pale. "You have no authority to arrest an elected official without—" "We have surveillance footage showing you entering restricted airport property to examine stolen goods," Grant interrupted. "We have financial records linking political donations to property seizures. We have witness testimony placing you in meetings where victim complaints were deliberately buried." She produced handcuffs from her belt. "You can surrender voluntarily, or we can do this the hard way in front of all these cameras." Hargrave looked around the chamber desperately, searching for allies who were suddenly very interested in their phones or notebooks. The council members who had nodded along with his accusations now avoided eye contact completely. "This is a witch hunt," he said weakly, but he extended his hands for the cuffs. The chamber fell almost silent as the metallic clicks echoed through the room. Every reporter captured the moment when Deputy Mayor Lyle Hargrave became just another defendant in handcuffs. News of the arrests spread faster than wildfire through City Hall. By 10:30, Airport Police Chief Warren Pike had submitted his resignation letter, citing family priorities and personal health concerns. Internal records later revealed he had ignored or buried complaints about Maddox and Rusk for over 3 years. The police union issued a terse statement withdrawing all support from Rusk after reviewing the surveillance footage. Union representatives who had called him a victim that morning suddenly discovered they had never heard of him. City Legal called Mariah's phone at 11:15. Her suspension was officially lifted, all disciplinary actions were vacated, and she was immediately reinstated to full command authority. The lawyer who delivered the news sounded like he was reading from a script prepared by people who wanted this problem to disappear as quickly as possible. The recovered evidence included more than anyone had expected. Maddox had maintained a second storage location in an abandoned customs office, filled with items seized from passengers over nearly 4 years. Lorraine Baptiste's church envelope sat in a manila folder, along with documentation showing exactly how much money had been stolen. Mariah stood in the empty council chamber after the reporters and spectators had finally left. On the evidence table, Inspector Grant had placed 3 sets of badge and identification cards: Maddox's Sergeant Stripes, Rusk's Officer Shield, and Hargrave's City Hall credentials. For the first time in weeks, Mariah allowed herself to breathe deeply. The afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Hartsfield Regional Terminal, casting long shadows across the same baggage claim area where Mariah Vale had been humiliated less than 2 weeks earlier. Airport maintenance crews had arranged folding chairs in neat rows, creating a makeshift ceremony space near Carousel 4. The irony was intentional. Mariah had requested this exact location. News vans lined the pickup area outside. Camera crews tested their equipment while reporters rehearsed their opening lines. Inside the terminal, passengers slowed their hurried pace to watch the preparations, sensing something important was about to happen. Mariah arrived through the main entrance at 3:30, walking beside her mother with the steady confidence of someone who had fought for this moment. She wore her dress uniform, navy blue with crisp creases, brass buttons polished to mirror shine, and captain's bars that caught the afternoon light. The bruises on her wrist had faded, but the memory of handcuffs in this same space gave every step deeper meaning. Diana Vale moved carefully beside her daughter, leaning slightly on a wooden cane but refusing any other assistance. At 64, she carried herself with the dignity of a woman who had watched her late husband fight workplace discrimination for decades. Today felt like vindication for battles that had taken too long to win. "You look like your father in that uniform," Diana said quietly as they approached the ceremony area. "He would be so proud." Mariah adjusted her cap slightly. "He would probably tell me the real work starts tomorrow." That's exactly what he would say. Diana's voice carried both pride and worry. Just remember that winning doesn't make you safe. It makes you responsible. The crowd was larger than expected. Airport workers stood along the outer edges. Baggage handlers, security guards, cleaning staff, and maintenance crews who rarely received public recognition for anything. Retirees from Evelyn's church network filled the front rows, many wearing their Sunday best despite the weekday timing. City officials clustered near the podium, looking uncomfortable but politically necessary. Detective Amos Bell stood near the side wall, still wearing his basement assignment clothes, but carrying himself differently. At 63, he had stopped expecting vindication for the corruption he had tried to expose years earlier. Now he watched Mariah with the satisfaction of someone who had finally backed the right person. Thomas Alvarez waited nervously near the maintenance corridor entrance, dressed in his cleanest work uniform. His supervisor had guaranteed him protection from retaliation, but years of keeping quiet had taught him to worry about powerful people's promises. Still, he had come forward when it mattered most. Evelyn Price sat in the front row, wearing a navy blazer and holding the small purse that had contained her phone during Mariah's arrest. At 68, she had spent 4 decades protecting students and teachers from bullies. Recording that airport confrontation had been instinctive, the same impulse that had made her a legendary principal. Lorraine Baptiste arrived exactly on time, accompanied by 3 women from her church. She wore a burgundy dress and carried the same purse she had been holding when Maddox and Rusk detained her. The empty fundraiser envelope was tucked inside, kept as evidence of what they had stolen. Today, she would finally get her money back. The ceremony began with Mayor Patricia Hendricks offering a carefully worded apology on behalf of the city. Her speech acknowledged serious failures in oversight and accountability, while avoiding specific details that might complicate ongoing federal prosecutions. Today we restore trust, the mayor announced to scattered applause. Today we prove that justice is not negotiable. Inspector Grant stepped forward with a manila envelope containing $8,400 in cash, the exact amount stolen from Lorraine's church fundraiser. The bills were crisp and new, replacing the worn 20s and 50s that congregation members had contributed for their community outreach program. Mrs. Baptiste, Grant said formally, on behalf of the federal investigation, I return what was unlawfully taken from you. Lorraine accepted the envelope with shaking hands. She opened it carefully, counting the bills with the precision of someone who had managed church finances for 20 years. When she finished, tears rolled down her cheeks. Thank you, she whispered, then looked directly at the cameras. I stopped flying after they made me feel like a criminal. Today, I know I was never the criminal. The crowd erupted in genuine applause, not polite political clapping, but the kind of sustained appreciation reserved for moments of real justice. Evelyn received recognition next. Inspector Grant praised her courage in recording evidence when other passengers looked away or focused on their own safety. Mrs. Price demonstrated that ordinary citizens have extraordinary power when they choose truth over convenience, Grant announced. Her actions protected not just Captain Vale, but every future passenger who might have faced similar treatment. Evelyn stood briefly, waving to acknowledge the applause, then sat down quickly. She had never enjoyed being the center of attention, but she understood the importance of what her phone had captured. I taught school for 41 years, she said into the microphone someone thrust toward her. I know a bully when I see one. I also know what happens when good people stay quiet. Thomas received the strongest protection. Mayor Hendricks announced that the city's whistleblower policy would be expanded specifically to protect airport workers who reported misconduct. Tomas would be offered a new position as civilian compliance liaison, working directly with the airport police to ensure proper procedures. Mr. Alvarez risked his job and his family's security to tell the truth, the mayor said. We will make sure that courage is rewarded, not punished. Bell's promotion was announced with particular emphasis. The new Integrity Review Unit would have independent authority to investigate complaints against airport police, with direct reporting to federal oversight rather than local command. Detective Bell has waited too long for this opportunity, Inspector Grant said. His integrity cost him advancement for years. Today, that integrity becomes the foundation for accountability. Finally, Mariah stepped forward for her oath. Judge Rebecca Morrison, brought in specifically to avoid any appearance of political influence, administered the swearing-in with clear, precise language. Do you solemnly swear to faithfully execute the duties of Captain, Hartsfield Regional Airport Police Division, and to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the rights of all travelers, regardless of race, religion, national origin, economic status, or any other characteristic? I do, Mariah said firmly. Do you swear to hold yourself and those under your command to the highest standards of integrity, service, and accountability? I do. Then, by the authority vested in me by the state and with the support of federal oversight, I reinstate you as captain with full authority to reform, restructure, and rebuild this division. The applause was thunderous. Airport workers cheered. Church members stood and clapped. Even some of the city officials looked genuinely moved by the ceremony's emotional power. Mariah took the podium for her first official address as captain. She announced immediate changes: a traveler rights desk staffed by trained advocates, priority assistance for seniors and vulnerable passengers, independent evidence controls managed by federal oversight, and mandatory body cameras for all officers with no ability to mute or disable them. This division will serve every person who enters this airport with equal respect, she declared. Rich or poor, citizen or visitor, young or old, everyone deserves dignity when they travel. As the ceremony concluded, people began moving toward the exits. Children who had watched from the edges started approaching Mariah, curious about her uniform and the celebration they had witnessed. A young black girl, maybe 8 years old, walked up to Mariah with the directness that only children possess. She looked up at the captain's bars, then at Mariah's face. "Are you in charge?" she asked simply. Mariah knelt slightly, bringing herself to the girl's eye level. Behind them, workers were already installing a new command plaque that read, "Captain Mariah Vale. Integrity, service, accountability." Mariah smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. "Yes, sweetheart, today I am." If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.